Consumer Affairs Committee to order. Would like to ask Senator Lee Anderson, if you wouldn't mind opening us with prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Father, we just thank you for another beautiful day, dear Lord. And dear Heavenly Father, we just ask you to give us the wisdom and knowledge we need to make the right decisions for the great people of the great state of Georgia. We love you and we need you. Forgive us of our sins and thank you for our wonderful blessings. In your name's sake, amen.
All righty, we have two bills on the agenda today. We're going to start off with Senate Bill 22, which is sponsored by Senator Kirkpatrick. There you are. And we're working off of, LC 510260, correct? Okay, I've got both of them in my folder here. Okay, 0320, that's the latest version. Does everyone, LC 510320. I'd love for you to. Yes, sir. I want to compliment you on your belt, Senator.
Oh, thank you. You should take a barrel race with you.
All righty, well, everyone has the bill. Senator, what?
Like an Elvis belt.
It is an Elvis belt.
Okay, I'm going to spread my stuff out here for a minute.
Senator, what is your number on your microphone?
It's number 3.
Number 3, okay.
3. And I appreciate being in front of the esteemed Agriculture Committee. I don't get to appear in front of y'all that often. As you know, I'm a physician and I work a lot on patient safety issues, and so that doesn't intersect with ag very often, but in this case it does. For the last year or so, I've been tracking the conversation federally and in other states about Delta 8 and other hemp products that are currently being sold on every corner, but without any regulation in our state. These products have increased in use since Congress legalized hemp in 2018 in the Farm Bill. The FDA has expressed concern, and they've sent warning letters to at least 5 different companies as recently as November, but they've not come forth with any rules of their own, and now they've asked Congress for more oversight. Some states are moving ahead with their own rules. I brought with me a stack of articles that are about the potential health problems and consequences of some of these products, including an article from the Wall Street Journal from a couple weeks ago about patient safety for these consumable products. And you have 2 of them in your folder, I believe. One of them is from the Journal of the American Medical Association, and one of them is a blog post about the FDA and what they're doing. So what the FDA is looking for is they want to require clear labeling, preventing contaminants, and setting a minimum purchase age, which is sort of the path that we're going down here. I don't know where my buddy Cardin Summers is, but I dropped this bill, and it was a much simpler 2-page bill, and then he had a bill that was more detailed about the growing and processing side of things, and we decided that the best thing to do is to put the 2 bills together with the goal of being sure that these products are safe by testing them, by labeling them, and placing an age requirement on this. So that's what you have in front of you today. And I've also got a couple of people, in case I need to phone a friend. I've got Mr. Will Wingate over here from Second Century Ag. I've got Catherine Russell from the Department of Agriculture, who will be regulating this. They're already responsible for regulating hemp. And I think I saw Commissioner Harper back there. Yeah. So we've got plenty of people with a wealth of knowledge. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to walk the committee through this. CBD and hemp-derived products are currently not regulated in Georgia, so a 10-year-old can legally purchase a hemp-derived 100 milligram THC gummy. There's no record of how many stores in Georgia sell hemp products, where the products are made, or what's actually in the package. So what this legislation does is put guardrails on these products, and this helps farmers, processors, and retailers in Georgia to create a high-quality product. It also empowers the Department of Agriculture to enforce the standards that are set forth in the bill. And so if you look through the bill, there are several different sections, and Section 1 designates that the revenue, any revenue derived, goes to the department for purposes of administering the bill. Section 2 defines consumable hemp products and also talks about the federal standards. So on line 45, you'll see the federally defined THC level for hemp, which is 0.3% or less. That's what we're talking about here. And it also talks about a full panel certificate of analysis. There he is.
I'm so sorry.
And we're looking for not only the actual chemical, the cannabinoid, but we're looking for heavy metals. We're looking for residual solvents, and we're looking for microbiological impurities, such as bacteria. Then, so this defines consumable hemp products. Section 3, 4, and 5 eases the burden on hemp growers and producers in Georgia. It lowers the licensing fee and the processing fee and the bond. It also provides for a background check and fingerprinting. And then in Section 6, it talks about the licensing, and this is really the only way to create a registry of retailers in Georgia who are selling these products. Section 7 requires that consumable hemp products have to display a QR code on the product that a consumer can use to tell what's actually in the product. And the Department of Agriculture has the right to pull any sample from a retail shelf to determine if they're labeled appropriately. In addition, this section on line 281 and 282 sets the milligrams per dose and the milligrams per package that would be allowed. This should get rid of most of the unsafe and mislabeled products that we have. And Section 8 and 9 allow the Department of Agriculture to create rules and regulations in compliance with the federally approved hemp plan. And then Section 10 prevents the sale of any consumable hemp product to anyone under the age of 21. So that whole section is about the age restriction. And it allows, again, the Department of Agriculture to do rules. The effective date in Section 11 is January 1st of 2024. So with that, that's a real quick overview of what's in the bill. Pretty complicated, but Senator Summers, do you have anything that you want to add?
Thank you, Dr. Kay. I don't know where you all talked about it, and I apologize, I'm number two. I don't know where you all were on the thing. I'm sorry, I was in presenting another bill just a minute ago. Our hemp bill that we have is disastrous. This hemp bill is about as clean and as effective for anybody in Georgia that wants to participate in this type of organization. It cleans it up, makes it nice, and it allows people to, we reduce the price, as I'm sure, as Senator told you, reduce the price to allow anybody to compete and be in business in this world. I just want you all to know that, it worries me that you can go to a grocery store, or you can go to a C store, or you can go anywhere you want to go right now, and you can go in there and you'll say something. They'll say 100 milligrams of Delta 8. Has anybody ever seen those signs? You can just buy a Delta 8. If you took 100 milligrams of that stuff, you wouldn't get off the floor. We don't have any clue what goes on in this state. And this bill here, and I want to appreciate Dr. Kilpatrick's work on this, and other people have joined in. This bill right here literally cleans up the industry and puts everybody on the same sheet of paper and gives everybody a level playing field. And I appreciate this committee hearing it. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Ditto.
All righty, good deal. And also, I wanted to say as well, we have a sign-up sheet for anyone that Rachel, where you have everybody anyone that wishes to speak on this bill later. Also, I forgot to recognize my good friend and a great American, Commissioner of Agriculture, Tyler Harper. He's in this room somewhere. Thank you for being here, Mr. Commissioner. Yes, sir. We appreciate you. Are there any questions from members of the committee that you would like to address either with Senator Summers or Senator Kirkpatrick? Okay, the floor is yours.
Senator, go back over the part where our commissioner has the right to go and pull any samples at any time.
It's in section 7.
Okay.
I'll get you a line number. Yeah, take a look at line 271, which says that the department shall randomly test consumable hemp products available for purchase at retail hemp establishments.
I guess what I'm asking, and this would take effect in '24,
Yes, sir.
and I guess my question is, be to the commissioner, do you think, Commissioner, that we be equipped to be able to carry out the duties that we need to do in a proper and correct way?
Senator,
You want to come up here?
the appropriate resources, we can always do anything, but yes, the quick and easy answer, Senator, is I believe we'll be able to execute that particular provision of the bill.
Okay. Thank you.
And Senator Anderson, we have been working with the department
Right.
on the bill to be sure that they're,
Covered.
yes, Catherine Russell may want to,
I may just want to clarify a little
Clarify.
bit. I'm Catherine Russell with the Department of Ag. So if you look at the very end of the bill and we talk about effective dates, everything becomes effective upon the governor's approval, except for Section 6, which is the section that speaks to what is required of the department. And so that's the part that will come in January 1st. So the other restrictions will go into effect immediately. But it gives the department a little bit of time to get the staff required, because this will likely be a very large registry if we're trying to have everyone come and that's selling CBD products. It's going to require a little staff, so it gives us just a minute to prepare for that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I'll go right now.
Senator Burns? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an observation. If I look at Section 2, and I recognize that we're looking for a full panel analysis, is that right? Of consumer, and then we go ahead and we define everything we're looking for, is that correct? My question is, what might change in the future, and how would you adapt to those changes?
these are current standards of the,
Are these current national standards?
they're the international standards,
They're current international standards.
yes.
So we reference the international standard, is that correct?
ISO.
ISO,
So this
yep.
is ISO, right?
Yes.
So the trick is, right now, we're codifying the fact that these are the current standards. If those standards change sometime in the future, how would we address that?
I think we'd probably have to go back and either change the date on the standards or change the specifics of what's listed.
Well, right now in the legislation, it's very specific, is that correct?
That's correct.
Please, may I? Sir. Please understand, Senator, there are no standards right now in the bill.
There are no standards in
Zero.
Georgia.
In
There are no
Georgia,
standards
that's
in
right. In
Georgia,
Georgia,
which is
that's
what
what
we're
we're
trying
trying
to
to do.
establish.
Right.
Is that correct?
Exactly. Thank you.
And this references the international standards as they
That's
are
correct.
currently in effect. Thank you.
What number are you, Sam? Okay. Senator Watson? Senator Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologize for my tardiness. I was in another committee, and I may have missed some of this. Some of it was, and the other bill was also for Mr. Senator Summers there. So how many, and some of this may be, I may have missed some of this, how many growers do we have, permits, and how many processors do we have, and how many consumable, I guess the consumable hemp establishments would be new?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, establishments, at one time, we had roughly 11 or 12 in Georgia, and basically they've all gone out of business due to the way the hemp bill was written. There's one producer still left in Georgia, which happens to be in my district, in Ocilla, Georgia, Irwin County. I think some people are here from there, and they could probably answer those questions. As far as growers, I think we have 2 growers here today with us, 2 farmers here today with us. They might be able to offer some testimony if you'd like to hear.
Okay, that's kind of what I figured, but I thought I might better go ahead and ask.
Okay.
And then,
Thank you.
and then you mentioned the Delta 8,
Yes, sir.
and I've just been trying to read through here. And I'm not I can't even talk about this intelligently.
Well, what I
but-
was mentioning about Senator Watson is the fact that, you see these, for lack of a better word, gas stations every up and down the road that says we sell 50 milligrams, we sell 100 milligrams, we sell this. It's all BS. It's not true. There's no way it can be. They don't have any testing. They don't know what to have. It's probably coming out of China. It's probably something that you wouldn't want your people taking. Go ahead. Diane.
Yeah, just, if you go look at line 63, 64, right
Right.
around that area, it defines the different types of cannabinoids, and the thing about it is Delta 8 is just one of them. There are many others, Delta 10, and I think there's even Delta Omega now. So that changes from time to time, but this is intended to incorporate all the cannabinoids that we know about.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
is Delta 8 illegal? It's not, just the Delta 9 in a certain.
The federal standard is any hemp product that's less than 0.3%
0.3.
THC. So that's the federal standard.
Gotcha.
So all of these have to meet that.
Okay. All right.
Do we have any further questions from the committee? Go ahead, Senator
Thank you,
Walker.
Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at, we are revising all the licensing fees for hemp, all the way from hemp growers to distributors to processors to retailers. So it looks like on line 153, we cap the hemp grower license at $650, where it was $5,000. So that would be, I guess, what, 13 acres at $50 an acre if it's more than 13.
It's capped at
It's capped.
$650.
Kept at
Do
650.
you all have any idea of the current hemp growers that we have in Georgia, what size acreage we're talking about? I mean, are these typically small acre?
I think the largest we had was about 40, 30 acres? 30 acres. The largest we had was about 30 acres, Senator.
And of course, I would think that's going to require, some on-site inspection by the Department of Ag
Absolutely.
at these farms. So, I'm for lowering the maximum, but $650 if you've got to make a trip to the farm seems low. But anyway, that's all right. And then we get over here to the processor. We're lowering it from 20 on that's line 210 to 11. It's currently a $25,000 annual fee. Instead, it'll be $5,000.
Of course, that'll be paid in just annual installments, as you see.
It's still $25,000.
25,000. It hadn't changed. It's still 25,000.
And then, if you don't mind,
No,
Mr. Chairman,
no, please.
on the fee thing, what really caught my attention, I guess, is line 251, 252. So a retail establishment, it's going to be a annual permit fee of $500. Anybody, do you all have any idea how many retail establishments we have in Georgia selling?
That's really the problem, is we have no idea.
Nobody
Because
knows.
they're not licensed and they're not required to register any way, shape, or form. So I would say, I don't have any idea how many there are.
I made a little check in my community and asked my sheriff, law enforcement about it. I think we got like 11 little centers in just my little town that sells CBD and hemp. Nobody knows.
So, Senator Walker, if you don't mind me just asking, I wanted you ask a question that I found the answer to. There are 150 licensed growers in Georgia, and there are 2 licensed processors in the state. I'm just going to share that with you.
Thank you. And then for some reason, we only want to charge the distributors on 254. We're charging them the same as a retailer. I don't know. I guess I'd like feedback from the Department of Agriculture. Are these fees commensurate with what he thinks or they think it'll cost to police this program, and you know, it's going to require, you know, hiring people and vehicles and testing equipment and all of that. These are some pretty dramatic changes to the fees. They probably are justified or maybe justified, especially on the grower. But
Well,
seems low on a distributor to me. Seems kind of high on a retailer.
We've had conversations with the department throughout the process, and they don't appear to have any issues with it. And I think you probably notice that the revenue that's produced as a result of this chapter goes to the department.
I mean, I would think there could be 10,000 retailers.
There might be.
Or, I mean,
I wouldn't
some
argue with that.
astronomical
Right now, they're
number.
paying zero, you know, to
So,
sell
I mean,
them.
that's $500 a clip.
Yeah, I mean,
Catherine Russell's going to speak.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you.
Do we have any more, I'm sorry, Senator Estevez, what number are you?
3.
3, okay.
Thank you for this bill. My understanding, having read it, is that to Senator Walker's questions, it is lowering the cost of entry into the market, which opens it up to more people. It's consistent on the pricing level. It's also consistent with a bill that we voted out of the committee last week, I believe, because it also allows folks who have been convicted with misdemeanors to still participate, whereas in the past they would be barred. So is that right, that you see it as
Yes.
opening up
Yes, sir.
the market? And then as far as the standards go, I know that we said that it was international ISO standards. How many states have these kinds of standards? Or probably the easier question is, how many states do not have standards like this?
I don't know the exact answer to your question, but I know that he may know, many states are beginning this process because the FDA has sort of, I don't really want to accuse them of anything, but they have not successfully put regulations out there to guide the states, and they are concerned. So they keep issuing warning letters, but that's about all they've done. And so from talking to the NCSL folks, I think there are somewhere around 20 states, 22 states, something like that, that are in the middle of this process, but I can't give an exact number.
Well, then, thank you. And the top concern being that there are folks buying this stuff from stores having no idea what's in it.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All righty, do we have any more questions from members of the committee? All righty, we have some people in the audience, I believe, who have signed up to speak. Thank you, Rachel. If you all don't know Rachel, she is phenomenal and keeps my head tied on. Let's see, let's start out with Daryl and Cliffy Smith. Please, would you mind coming forward to provide your testimony?
One in, what's that one?
That's Mike, 1 and 1.
That was going one.
Mike 1 and Witness 1.
All right, good deal.
We're Daryl and Cliffy Smith. This is my father. He actually, the permits and all was in his name last year. I helped him grow it all. I'm third-generation tobacco farmer. We grew tobacco for years and years, and this was our first year growing hemp, but we followed all the regulations, the guidelines, everything we were told to do. We had the biggest hemp farm in Georgia this year and set the state record for the biggest yield made by following all the guidelines we were given. Our biggest concern is how much revenue and all that the state is losing also by not regulating what's in stores, by just turning loose to any age that can buy it. You also have regulations saying that we can't process the stalks, the biomass, all of it has to be buried or burned. Where other states are also taking the stalks are full of fiber, so they're making sheetrock, water bottles, hempcrete, all this stuff's just going to waste. That's tax dollars, jobs, everything that could also be involved with this if we could just loosen up the rules a little bit or just redo the rules. Because right now, everything y'all have says we have to destroy it or burn it. So we can extract the oil and the rest has to be discarded. So there's a lot out there on the table that we are pushing for and we want. And we also want these rules to go through because just like I've got 3 children, he said, like Carden said, a 10-year-old can walk in and buy a hemp gummy. I don't want my 11-year-old going to buy something that I don't know what it is, or it says it's got 100 milligrams of THC in it when I know good and well what 25 will do to me. So there needs to be a lot of stuff redone, and we're all for that, and we're for doing it the right way, or, and helping any way we can. We've been with the Georgia Ag, we've taught, we've sent our stuff to the lab, we know what it was, we know what was in it, and we followed every line that we could to the best of our ability. So that's why we're here. We want this to go through. And we can answer anything y'all want to know about growing it, doing it, or what we did to it.
All right, do we have any questions from members of the committee? None. All right, Senator Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank y'all for coming up here. I know you had a long drive. And I'm gonna ask this question in the mind of the farmer, because that's what I do for a living, and I grow vegetables. And anytime you make something easier for people to do, and you limit the amount that's sold, the price, is gonna go, or open it up, you're just gonna go down. I mean, I feel like if we allow more people in, then there's gonna be more grown, and then you're gonna get less.
Well, I completely understand that, but our biggest thing is if the laws don't stay as it's got to be Georgia grown, then what's going to stop a company from walking here and opening it up, and we're going to bring it from Colorado, we're going to bring it from Tennessee, we're going to do what we want to with it. Anywhere we can buy it cheaper, we're going to bring it. If it's in Georgia, it has to go by Georgia laws and has to pass everything with the USDA. It's no different than when we grew backer. We had the labor laws, chemical regulations, but they brought whatever they wanted to from Brazil and just mixed it right in. Everybody smoked it, it was all fine. Same thing with vegetables. If it comes out of Mexico or somewhere else, there's no laws.
That's right, and that's pretty much what's happening.
That's what we're pushing for. We ain't trying to get rich, but you a farmer also. We got to make a living, but if stuff ain't regulated, we all gonna just.
Well, you're keeping the pool is pretty tight right now, but we're fitting to open up the floodgates at the farm level.
Right. And that's what we're saying. If it's Georgia grown and Georgia growers have got to grow it, at least we're growing Georgia. I mean, that's where we here. We've always been here. We ain't planning on going nowhere else. And we understand what you're saying, or lowering it. But if everybody's got to follow the same rules, at least it's on a fair playing field.
Well, but I think we're also, you're going, and I agree. We need to make sure what we're selling is safe. Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with that. But we're also maybe limiting some of the outlets for that product to where there's a market for it, and now we're not going to have that market.
And that's also where I'm sitting here saying, by law right now, you have to destroy everything. The stalks alone, in other states, they make water bottles, they make door panels and stuff out of anything with fiberglass because of the amount of fiber that's in the product. The sheetrock won't even burn, the sheetrock they make out of it. You can also put the stalk in a wood chipper and sell it to a concrete yard because it's just the fiber that's in your concrete. There's so much out there that's not being used with this product. This product is being wasted. There's just hundreds of millions out there just going to be thrown away. And from what I've heard, I think 70% of the crop got destroyed this year because of not passing regulations. If they pass and send it to a processing facility that can remediate it and make it be what it's got to be, why do you have to destroy that crop? We're already having to talk to our police. The helicopters and all flew our fields checking for it this year. We done everything we were supposed to do, right down to where we hauled it. And even when we started hauling it, we got pulled over by the deputy sheriff, state patrols, and everything else. We had all the paperwork, everything was legit, everybody knew where it was at. And even if it went hot, when you take it to the plant, you can remediate it back to what it needs to be.
And forgive me for asking this, but how's this bill gonna change whether it's hot or not? I mean, isn't that a lot of that
Well, but
environmental and just farming?
It is environmental, but if you know your plant date, you can control that. All you have to do is take a sample, send it to the state lab, they will tell you, and they will tell you how many days you've got to harvest it. And you can harvest it in that time frame. And if you get a true certified seed, you will pretty much know exactly how long it takes for that seed to hit maturity. I mean, that's just the way we done it. I mean, the state of Georgia come out to the field, took the
But that's current-
samples.
That's current law though, right?
Yes, sir.
They're not changing any of that in this bill.
No, sir.
Okay.
We have any other questions from members of the committee?
I had a question, number 8.
Okay.
I think you just answered that. I just want to make sure that all the security and the processes that were in the original bill last year or 2 years ago, that is still in place, so that our growers and producers are following all of those same regulations.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No changes.
Senator Anderson?
On the harvesting,
Yes, sir.
when you said that you can take a sample and find out whether, when you got the period of time you got to harvest it so it won't be hot. In the harvesting, has it got to be, what type weather has it got to be?
Technically, considering you do not dry it like you do tobacco, you can harvest it in the rain if you got
You
to.
can?
Because all you're gonna do is put it in a tobacco barn and air dry it.
Well, that's basically animal corn. I was wondering if you had to have perfect weather.
No, sir. You can harvest it however. And
Okay.
I actually got with Powell Tobacco Company, and we invented a machine that will harvest it, and I was harvesting 6.5 acres a day with it.
So what I'm getting at, weather's not really a factor.
No, sir.
With this, that's good.
With tobacco, if you put tobacco in a barn, considering how it is and how bulky it is, it will rot in the barn. But if you harvest this hemp, considering that you're putting the whole stalk in the barn, it will air dry.
Just curiosity, how much do you think you lost on not being able to sell the stock?
I have no idea because I don't,
You didn't even have that option.
I never had that market. And not to mention that with the oil prices and everything, you don't, I don't know because there's nothing in Georgia that does that, and I hadn't looked out to like Kentucky or anywhere that does.
Okay.
Any other question from the committee? All righty, well, thank you all for coming and providing your testimony. We appreciate you making the long trip. Next, we have signed up Mr. Handy Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, do you mind coming up and introducing yourself? I see you're one as well, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Handy Kennedy, fourth generation farmer. I'm from the Tappan, O'Connell area, down near Reedville, Georgia. This basically will be going into my 4th year of growing hemp. My journey is just a little different than the previous speakers. Whenever I was preparing to start growing hemp, it was a major investment because they were telling us that basically that because this plant is what we call a photoreceptor type of plant, it sucks up everything that's in the soil. So therefore, we had to basically clear land in order to grow hemp. We had some land that wasn't being utilized by the farm, so therefore I had to invest in getting it clean. And if anybody knows, it takes a lot of money to clear land and prepare it. And also, I don't mind competition. I think competition is great, but I just want them to play by the same rules that we play by. And what I mean by that is that we're ensure that our soil is fertile, and we ensure that our soil is clear of pesticides and insecticides. We had to get tests, and basically we took soil samples, we sent it off, and we had to make sure that our soil were clear of any type of chemicals, any type of pesticides. Very expensive. Then we do We constantly do soil tests to make sure that our soil is very fertile. Another major investment. And when it comes to testing, we extremely do a lot of testing, and just to make sure that our crop is basically meets the standard, the international standard. Like from now, previously, we just got a full panel test also on our crop, just to make sure that before we get ready to sell it, that, you know, my family and my friends use our products. And I'm not going to have them basically using something that I know that's not safe. So that's the type of care that most of the farmers in Georgia use to grow their product. We just want to make sure, and we just want to make sure that product that comes in from China or Mexico have to play by the same rules that we play by. And if they can't provide that type of certificate showing that it's that they have the same standard that we have, then they should not be allowed to sell products in Georgia. And that's all we're really basically saying. Just give us an opportunity, because we can grow a good product. But it's just very unfair to us to be able to have to compete with somebody who do not play by the same rules that we play by, because we go through a lot of testing, and our testing has to pass. And if it doesn't pass, we basically have to destroy it. And I concur with the last speaker when they said that there are other options that we need to look at. Because I'm not only here for myself, but I'm really here because if anybody know about farming, it's about the next generation. And at this point in time, you know, we grow cotton, we have cattle. Honestly speaking, I would not tell my family to continue farming. And I knew that this crop had an opportunity to change this, because I think the health benefit and the opportunity with the different type of fiber, this crop can basically breathe a lot of oxygen into farmers that are suffering right now. The new generation, not really interested in a lot about raising cattle, cotton, but this particular crop gets a lot of them excited. I know my family personally, my nieces and nephew, they want to farm now because of this crop. But the problem that we're having, I've been growing, this going, like I say, the 4th year, I haven't made a profit. I have invested a lot of money. And the problem is that I still have product sitting in storage right now because there's really no outlet to sell it, because I can't compete with, you know, I go to a CBD store and say, hey, I would like to sell you some of Georgia grown product that I can show you the full panel, I can show you CA, I can show you the quality. But when it comes down to a retail store, to say the bottom line, I can buy it a lot cheaper somewhere else than I can buy yours. And so right now, we kind of at the verge of now I had a 5-year plan. If we don't make any money this year, I'm afraid that, you know, I'm going to have to tell the next generation that I'm not sure what commodity we can invest in for y'all in order to keep the farm afloat. And so it's real crucial that y'all just provide us with an opportunity to continue growing this product and give us just an opportunity to really make some money. And I think that if you would just look at the quality that we grow, you will really understand how much we put our blood, sweat, and tears in trying to grow a good product, because at the end of the day, it's about this product being used by our loved ones and our family and friends. So, if anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. You have a question, Sam?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. You know, I came over from the house and I'm trying to play catch up here, and I was late.
What are you 9?
9.
And I apologize, Senator Watson, that I called him Sam, but he and I have known each other for a while, so.
Yep. Thank you. So I've heard of, you know, from the second farmer, but where does it in this bill will allow y'all to sell and market hot product and stalks and other byproducts? Is this, where are we growing the market for the farmer in this bill?
Mr. Chairman, we need to bring up Will Wingate, if you don't mind. Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Yeah.
Will, sit right there.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Up here, Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Will Wingate. I'm the founder and CEO of Second Century Ag. I think we're Georgia's only operational hemp processor left in the state of Georgia. We've got a facility in Irwin County where my family's been for over 100 years. We've had the opportunity to work with many of the farmers, the Smiths. We process Mr. Kennedy's product, and we've worked with many farmers throughout this industry. To your point, Senator Watson, there is a section in this legislation, let me find it, where it basically opens up the definition of hemp products to include,
I think it's number 40, is that right? Yeah, 40.
and this may be a question for legislative council where that was in there. It was in the original bill. But it basically opens up hemp products to include food, animal products, fibers, throughout the entirety of the use of the product. And I don't know where that is in this section right here. But that was the whole idea, Senator Watson, to expand. Right now, you can only use the oil and everything else has to be destroyed. Well, the fiber has got huge value. The processed biomass that we use can be used for animal bedding, which we can't do. We've got stalks and stems that can be used for construction, which we're having to just sit on or destroy. Dog food, pet tinctures, all of that should be opened up.
That would be a separate deal, separate add-on.
So, in the most recent draft that we concocted this morning, we took out some of those specific examples from definitions because we separated. Now there are two definitions. There's consumable hemp products and industrial hemp products.
Right.
And this bill, really the thrust of it is getting at consumable hemp products, just regulating all of that, creating all those licenses, providing for the inspections, all of that. So I don't know that this bill is doing anything to make more available or more legal industrial hemp products. It is just creating a separate definition for them, and they, I believe, will remain as legal or illegal as they currently are, unless I'm mistaken there.
Right, so we certainly would like to expand the definition to allow that the entirety of the product, of the hemp stalk and the hemp product can be used commercially in Georgia.
We are working on, language, Mr. Chairman, on different bills that'll come, but this bill was designed simply to protect the consumer on the shelf buyer, and what we have for our people that make the oils.
Golly. No, you're fine, Kathy.
So, yes. So, I'm Catherine Russell, Department of Ag. So this was, the differentiation in the two types of hemp product is actually something that we asked for. And the reason is because right now, hemp products are all being treated the same. And what we recognize is that there is an intention to have products that will be consumed by people or animals, and then industrial products, which is essentially everything else that we are not interested in regulating in the same way. Most of this bill speaks to what is being sold at the retail level as a consumable for the public, and we felt like it was really important to carve that out. And then later in the Title 16 section, we also specify that it's consumable hemp products, because what we didn't want to say is that an 18-year-old couldn't go into a store and buy a hemp T-shirt. Like we didn't feel like that was necessarily something that we needed to be doing. And so that differentiation is something that we asked for, because we think that it's going to create clarity moving forward in what in how we regulate these products. Is that helpful? Did I answer the question?
Senator Watson.
So do we have anyone within the state that's manufacturing consumables or selling consumables? Not, I should say selling, manufacturing.
We do.
How many, are they considered a processor?
Right now, yes.
So there's two of those.
What we would like to do, we are issuing licenses for growers and for processors, and then once we get to the retail side, we just kind of don't have anything structured there, and so that's what we're trying to capture.
So would y'all be one of the processors?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Senator.
What consumables are y'all manufacturing?
So we currently manufacture tinctures, gummies. We've got roll-ons, balms, and we've got a line of dog food lined up. We've got a pet tincture lined up. All of those which meet the criteria set forth in this legislation.
Okay.
Mike, now, if you ask Mr. Wingate, he might be able to tell us, but correct me if I'm not wrong. Without hemp, you really don't have medical marijuana or medical cannabis or whatever. We're trying to get kind of one-to-one basis. How's that? You want to elaborate?
So to Senator Summers' point, that's addressed in another bill. But when you're making any cannabinoid product, you have to have a CBD blend in there to carry it. So what we wanted to make sure is that any product that is ingestible by the citizens of this Georgia meet this standard, this ISO standard, and that's why we codified it. So you know that you're getting a clean product. You know that you're getting something that's going to have no residual pesticides or no heavy metals or the solvents involved. It's going to be a clean product, which there's currently no standard for that. So you go to a grocery store, you may have a product that's $4 that's coming from out of the country, and you have no way of knowing what exactly is in that. If you have a product that is grown or made using the distillate that the farmers that we work with, we know what they've put into that crop. We know how they've been able to grow it without the pesticides, without the heavy metals, without the residual solvents, and we know it's a clean product. This language in this bill will give the consumer confidence that they're buying a good, clean product, and hopefully grow an industry in Georgia. To your point, Senator Watson, about the fees, we pay $25,000 a year. We pay a bond. We're the only guys left. We want competition. We want other processors to come into the state. We understand you can't grow an industry if you're a monopoly here. We want a North Georgia processor and a Southwest Georgia processor. We're sitting in Ocilla, Georgia. It's fairly expensive to haul your product from Dahlonega down to Ocilla. So there should be more processors in this state. And if this lowers the cost, if this lowers the financial barrier to entry, then we're all for that, because that's going to grow the hemp industry in Georgia as a whole.
Okay. Senator Burns, what number?
Just a point of clarification. 5. This is for consumable hemp, is that correct? This is not a bill related to industrial use of hemp, is that correct?
It just puts the
It
definition
just
in.
defines industrial hemp, but it does not provide any additional reference, is that correct?
We just bifurcated the definition, that's all we did.
Thank you. But this bill deals with consumable hemp products.
Correct.
Okay. Senator Walker.
So getting back to the fiber and the using it in wood and not wood panels and sheetrock and all of that kind of thing. Is that is that regulation of that already at the discretion of the Commissioner of Ag, or is that codified somewhere else, or?
So I'm very hesitant to speak with certainty on that. I believe that there are some regulations. I'm not confident saying off the top of my head what they are. It is.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, can y'all allow that through rules and regs, or does it require legislation?
We can do a lot through rules and regs. We can do a lot. So if we were to maybe sit down and talk about a specific interest, we might figure out how to move forward with that. But one great thing about this bill is that it starts that separation so that we can do industry-specific regulation moving forward.
Each one stay on his own.
One other question, and it gets back to what I talked about earlier. Is the Department of Ag prepared to license all the Walgreens, all the Krogers, all the mom and pops, all the BP service stations, and charge them $500 to sell a CBD product? Is that
So we're prepared to do what is asked of us by the legislature. Right now, we probably don't have the staffing for it, so we would need
I mean, I almost
resources.
think about a beer and wine license. Should that be done at the county and city level? Or, I mean, it just almost seems like
Ideally, we
a
would
lot
have.
of government.
Yeah,
to me.
ideally, we would have them all come to the department. We would like to have a division of hemp so that we have specialists who are looking at this issue because it's pretty complex. And so we would welcome them to come to us so that we have a repository of everyone who's operating in this market.
Okay. I've got an amendment I want to offer on the fees when the time's appropriate. I don't even know when,
Okay.
what the parliamentary procedure.
Well, at this point, Senator Walker, I think parliamentary procedure's out the window, but, is there any other questions from members of the committee, though, with any of our, panel of witnesses that we have here? Okay, I would, thank y'all for coming. I wanted to also, we have Clint Smith from, Sunbelt Hemp Source, who I believe is here to testify.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
May I sit here?
Sure.
All right. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me speak. Senator Kirkpatrick, nice to see you. My brother's also an orthopedic surgeon, and I'm from Fitzgerald, Georgia, so also very close to the Irwin County group, and we operate out of Colquitt County, Moultrie, Georgia, and have a very immense perspective, I would say, in the hemp industry. We started in 2018 studying the hemp industry when the Farm Bill passed. We currently process about 60,000 acres of farmland in our co-op. As you all know, farming in Georgia is difficult, and you're at the mercy of what subsidies and many other government aids that you can have to make a profit. So we wanted to get into what would be a cash crop for our farmers. That's where we got started. So I sympathize with Mr. Kennedy and the Smiths. We were the largest grower in Georgia in 2020. Including in one field, we had 52 acres of hemp, including the UGA test plot in South Georgia. We produced about 75,000 pounds of flour. And out of that, we had another farmer in our co-op that due to testing, we destroyed his crop because of a high level of metalaxyl. We grew on virgin land. He did not. He had fallow land. It had been fallow for 3 years, but it had brought up some of the chemicals. And so that is, like Mr. Kennedy said, that's a very difficult situation when you have to lose a crop for whatever reason it might be when you feel like you've done everything else correctly. So talking about standards, testing standards, I'm going to start there. I just happened to bring up one of our profiles, and as mentioned, there are no testing standards for pesticides and such. So when SJ Laboratories opened up in Macon, it's one of the few laboratories, testing laboratories that we have. Talking with Sarah Johnson at the time, she said, what standards do we need to use? And I said, we need to use the strictest standards in the United States. So I believe it was California, but everything we did was parts per billion. We're listed in even, parts per 100 million here. So we are testing at a very, very strenuous level for testing. And I didn't come here to talk about testing, but if anyone would like to see a analysis, I have it here. I didn't bring any with us. And just with SJ Labs, we have over 300 certificate of analyses for our products, for our hemp that we produced, as well as concentrates, Delta-8 concentrates that were extracted from hemp, not converted, and also from finished products. I did bring, and which this kind of goes with a lot that was happening. So this is a box that we created, I don't know, a year or so ago. QR code, obviously. And this is a THC-free product, by the way. 21 plus only. So clearly marked. We felt like there was need for regulation, so we're really glad about the majority of this bill. Farmers have a hard row to hoe in the hemp industry. Processors do. Will can speak to that. There's a reason there's only one processor. It's not very profitable. So we invested about $1 million in processing and never once even installed equipment. Decided against it because we saw the market falling. One thing that we would like to see is education for potential farmers. Lowering the entry level to farmers is fine, but there needs to be support for them. They need to know what they're getting into so that we don't have other farmers who, after 5 years, may have to get out because they've lost everything. Retired nurses, retired school teachers. We've worked with so many, and there needs to be some guidance. There needs to be not a barrier, but some hurdles so they understand what they're getting into. And we need to help. Georgians need to help Georgians. Georgia farmers need to be helped to be able to sell their products. So a lot of that is in here. Now, a couple of things that I do want to bring up, and I better look at my notes. We've talked about so much that I have very short notes. First thing, most important, is the consistency with federal guidelines. Section 2 talks about THC and its isomers. So federal guidelines is for Delta-9 THC, which is the Delta-9 THC and Delta-9 THCA, which is acid. It does not cover the isomers and esters. And we are now actually expanding that. And I completely agree with the abuse, the accessibility, the potential misuse of recreational products in our industry. We are in the health and wellness industry. Everything we do, every dime we spend is for helping people because we know we've seen the benefits. And to give that example, I actually attended Night to Shine Friday night in Colquitt County at Heritage Church, and that's Jessica Hatcher. Rett syndrome, she's 24 now. Her mom contacted me about 2.5 years ago and said, is there anything you can do? Jess has 50 to 60 seizures a day. They're uncontrollable. We're on 3 medications. And she knew us. She'd worked with us before for a different reason, for a sponsorship reason for her organization. And so we tried something. We sent a full spectrum product to her that was borderline pushing legality. It was not, I couldn't have sold it to her, but it was only 0.45% THC, but it was a full spectrum product that was outside the limits. It was actually from a company that we had purchased in Colorado in 2018 that we were getting into. So anyway, 26 months, 25 months later, Jess is virtually seizure-free, has been. She's off all meds, has said mama for the first time. She's been nonverbal her whole life, has said her name for the first time, and she's using a product that does not have Delta-9 in it, but has trace amounts of Delta-8. It's a 10-to-1 product. Hers is actually now 6-to-1 product. Fully compliant under federal laws. It's only 0.1% Delta-9 THC. And that is one of the benefits that we have used. Veterans, severe PTSD, opioid reduction. Dr. James Huffman from Colquitt County, and if you want to see, that QR code actually takes you to his introduction to the CareLeaf line, uses it and has over 300 patients that use one of our CareLeaf products, which are all ratio products, from the tiniest amount of Delta-8 THC to up to a 2-to-1 ratio. What I do like about this, so I just want to make sure that we have consistency with the federal guidelines, because we do need to regulate Delta-8 and other isomers and esters of THC. Our most potent Delta-8 tincture is a 2-to-1 tincture. It's 1,500 total milligrams. It has 500 milligrams of Delta-8. It is dosed by the drop, not by the ml. We measure every dropper, every batch of droppers to know how many milligrams will come out. This is only sold, as it shows here, in pharmacies and in physician's office. And we have more than 50 retailers that are carrying these products. It's not a high quantity product. We don't make a lot of money off of it, obviously, but it is a very beneficial product when done correctly, when used correctly. If I don't want to go into all the numbers of people that we have that have benefited from that, but I do want to say that it is beneficial. It is different than some of the other THCs. It is processed differently in the body. We've studied it as much as possible. And that is just one reason I want to make sure that if we're consistent with federal guidelines on the regulation of THC, then this will continue to be a legal product. If we enforce the 25 milligrams is a gracious plenty for any serving of Delta 8. I would never recommend it for anyone. I would never take it. 500 milligrams is I'm like fingers crossed, because that would make our best product and most used product for opioid dependency and other severe disorders still compliant. And when we talk about servings, this is at least a month serving. So that 500 milligrams is broken down into 5, 4, 3, even 3 milligram dosages. So we're talking about not nearly the same. The problem I have is if we're consistent with federal guidelines for regulating hemp, great. If we throw in the isomers and esters, that lumps this into being less than 0.3. Yes, we could still do a 500 milligram product, but it would weigh 1.6 kilograms. So it would be a birthday cake for a product. So that we just need to make sure that we really understand the qualifications and quantifications that we're working here, as well as there are some benefits. I completely agree when you see the Delta 8 here, Delta 8 here, that's recreational and it has to be regulated. My last point will be on the retail fees, which I think was brought up a few moments ago. Georgia farmers need access to, and producers need access to retailers. If we regulate small retailers and hamper them with a $500 entry fee to it, the only retailers we're going to have will be smoke shops, vape shops who do high quantities, some CBD stores who, I don't know if anybody's ever tried to go into a CBD shop and sell them CBD products from Georgia, it's hard to do for the same reasons you mentioned. There is a cost involved. We have quality products, fully tested products, and the people who appreciate those products are pharmacies, smaller retailers, retailers who want a specific quality brand. I would like to see Georgia supported regulations where, hey, let's license retailers, but let's make the license affordable. Make it easy. Don't make it a barrier. Make it a good way to get in and know who's selling, because I think that's the point here is we want to know who's selling products, and then penalize heavier if there's someone who doesn't comply. Make it to the point even if the wholesaler registers their products where they're being sold. Every time we start a new retail agreement or partnership, we can register those people. We're good with that. We want it to be. We want everything to be above board, because that's the only way quality products get appreciated. The people that are going to abuse the system are still going to be buying the products that are not quality. So really that's the points that I would have. Otherwise, the bill is fantastic. As I talked to Catherine today, if I've heard the Wild West mentioned once, I've heard it at least 5,000 times in this industry. So if we can have some type of regulation besides self-regulation so we can all have a level playing field, it'd be much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you. In interest of time, I'm not going to allow any questions. We've been providing testimony for an hour now. I want to finish up. Catherine Russell, or do you would like to speak?
I actually think I addressed.
Okay. All right. Good deal. All right. Good deal. All righty. What's the and
We're gonna, I don't know, you do that now?
Have to be,
Are we gonna vote on this, or is this for
Yeah.
action? So,
go ahead,
So,
Senator
Mr.
Walker.
Chairman, I'd like to offer an amendment to change on line 154, to change $650 to $1,000. And on line 252, to change $500 to $125. 252. And on line 254, to change $500 to $1,500.
And what was the last one?
254.
Okay.
And I'm just, I mean, that's my amendment. If the ag department gets into this and finds out those are not appropriate, I don't know where the figures came from that are in the bill, but
Well,
We did not offer that one in the bill. That did not come from the Department of Ag.
okay. You-
I don't know. Where did the, anyway.
Yeah. Senator Estes, what number are you? 4? 3.
Or 4. I just want to make sure that I heard you right, Senator Walker. You said 1,000 for 154, 125 for 254, and then
252. The retail license would be $125, not $500.
okay.
A farmer could pay up to $1,000, even if he farmed 50 acres. Because you're gonna have to go to the farm and test this to see if it's hot or not.
Yes, go ahead, Senator.
Speaking as a member of the committee,
Yes.
Senator Walker, did you make that 250 instead of going down to 125? At least it'll give a little bit of extra there. Would you mind making that on line 252, 250 instead of the 125 in your amendment, in your motion? Or your,
Well,
I get to thinking about every retailer in Georgia that sells this stuff. It's gonna be a lot of license fees, a lot of dollars, but are y'all trying to have fewer retailers, I guess, or?
Well, I can't speak for Senator Summers, but my intention was simply to have a way to register people and know what we're dealing with in terms of all the retailers that are doing this.
So that.
So the number doesn't matter as much to me as just having a process.
I'm just trying to make sure the number's high enough that we're taking care of those issues you're talking about. Pay for the folks you need, I just don't.
the thing is, you're raising the cost of farmers,
How much is it?
and you're lowering the cost to the gas stations.
There's no profit in it.
We're
so-
lowering the,
Will you raise it to $1,000?
we're lowering it from 5,000 to
I'm
1,000.
just saying in the deal.
People shouting from the back.
I mean, that's my amendment. Y'all can vote it up or down. It's
Okay.
all right with me.
We have we have an amendment on the floor. Is there a?
Someone's got to move too fast before you can amend it.
Pass that, it's too low.
No, they've got to do pass the bill.
All right, thank you, guys. Appreciate it, Mayor. Yes, sir.
Yellow sailor and amendment.
So, Mary just spoke to me. What we've got to do is we've got to vote on the bill, and then we got to come back and offer the amendment.
You gotta work the amendment first, but you gotta have a second to the amendment. So I'll second the amendment,
Okay.
okay? And now the amendment is on the table.
You gotta pass the bill first.
But you got to pass the bill.
You don't have to pass the bill first.
No,
You have to-
no, no, you-
Someone has to someone has to move
Okay.
for the bill. I mean, he makes a motion to amend.
All right.
And then you vote on the motion to amend, and then you vote on the.
Okay. So we've got a motion on the floor to amend that we have to.
You have to have first have a motion. I move to pass the bill as submitted.
There we go.
All right, need a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Not yet, you got an amendment.
Okay.
Now he can move to.
So you want me to restate my amendment? Or y'all
No,
got
you
it?
don't need to restate it. Yeah.
Yes.
So now, do we need
Restate the
to
amendment.
restate it? Okay.
Make it 250, that way I won't have to go through the amendment to the amendment. May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? Senator Summers, help us understand why you came to these numbers and why you think 125 is too low and perhaps 500 is too high for the retailer, strictly retailer, why you're arguing for a 250.
Actually, I didn't come to it by myself, Senator Burns. It
I
was
thought you did.
myself, Ag Department, got Kay, all of us together, that been working on this for months in and months out, trying to get it up to a point. If somebody can't pay that, then they don't need to be selling the stuff.
Perhaps our good friend.
Okay, go ahead, Senator Walker.
All right, so what I was suggesting was on line 154, instead of lowering the cap from 5,000 to 650, which basically would be 13 acres, lower it to $1,000.
Raise it to.
I mean, yeah, change 650 to 1,000. So we're lowering the cap from 5,000 to 1,000 instead of to 650. And then on line 252, I'll go along with the 250 for the retail. So change 500 to 250. And then on line 254, I think a distributor or wholesaler ought to pay more than a retailer. So I suggest changing 500 to 1,500.
All righty, we have a motion on the floor. Has it been seconded?
Second.
It's in second, okay. All in favor of the amendment? Signify by saying aye. Okay, it's unanimous. All right, now we're on to the bill, right? Okay. Now we're on to the bill as amended. Do I have a motion from the committee?
Motion and second already. You got a motion and second?
Okay, motion second, all right.
Call the question.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, what is that? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1, and the motion passes. Bill,
Moves forward.
yeah, he voted too. I'm sorry, Senator Summers. I'm not used to you being up there.
You just
All right.
leaving me out, boss.
I know. All right, we're going to move on to the next bill and try to see if we can get everybody out of here.
Okay. Beautiful.
All right,
Move around to the other side of the table over here.
okay. I will. All right.
This is not really something we can take care of.
Huh?
I'm not sure this is something we can take care of in 15.
This bill, we're going to have a hearing and then we're going to. So, all right, Senator Parent, thank you. No, you're fine, Senator Parent. We're going to, today, we're just going to have a hearing.
Yeah, that's fine.
And let's, yeah. So,
Yes.
Senate Bill 34, Senator, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I know that the hour is late and everyone's brains are probably already fried. And while I do not think this is quite as complex as your last piece of legislation, it probably does need a little bit of the committee's attention and brain power. So I think that that is a fine decision to have it initially heard. So this piece of legislation, and you do have a committee sub, because I've been working with some organizations on trying to get the language right, arose out of a study committee that we did last summer. The initial impetus for the study committee, just by way of background, is that during the pandemic, when restaurants were closed to in-person dining, or many were for a period of time, there were a number of restaurants that really had not ever done a large amount of takeout in terms of a sizable portion of their business. And obviously that completely got upended, and takeout was really the only option. Even if localities were allowing eat-in dining, or when they did, there were still many, many consumers who decided they would rather eat at home because they were, sheltering in place, and this provided a way to support their local restaurants, but still, and not have to cook, but still be safe. Well, this changed some restaurants' business model a little bit dramatically, because there are, it's a new contract that you're entering, and there are significant fees involved, even though many restaurants, of course, really appreciate the service provided. It's certainly something that needs to be considered when entering into as a restaurant entrepreneur, as you will obviously be paying on the restaurant side as well as on the consumer side for delivery. We do think that despite, restaurants obviously being open for in-person dining, this sort of third-party food app delivery model has remained an elevated portion of many restaurants' businesses. And we do believe that these businesses will continue to grow. And so to understand the potential impact on consumers, food establishments, and delivery providers and drivers, we established this study committee and met and heard a lot of interesting and informative testimony. The bill that came out of the committee is a direct result of the unanimous report of the study committee. So that's where we are. So just a little bit by way of background, restaurants have a lot of food, health, and safety regulations and requirements that they are duty-bound to follow. And, they're regulated by the Department of Public Health and the local county departments of public health, and are subject to inspections. There is none of that once the food is handed over to a third-party delivery company. So that was one of the issues we were looking at. What could go wrong in that space? And it turns out that, as you can imagine, there can be a number of things going wrong, from missing French fries or missing food items entirely to missing portions of meals. That is one commonly raised complaint. There have also been issues, and most of the larger providers that you're already familiar with were already pretty careful and good about having a written agreement with the restaurants that they were serving. Not all of them have, and so then you would run into issues like someone's likeness and menu is being used without their permission, sometimes even after they've been asked repeatedly to remove it. The mobile application would not be removing it. You'll find, and I directly have found at times, that I would try to order something and it never came. And then eventually what I would find out after a lot of effort is that restaurant had not authorized its presence on that application. And in my mind, as a neophyte, having learned nothing about this issue yet, I thought it was the restaurant's fault. Well, really, it turned out that it was this restaurant had not approved its presence on this application. And sometimes you'll see follow-on issues such as that when the menu items are wrong or they're outdated. So that's actually probably the most serious issue in my mind that has been contended with between restaurants and third-party delivery app businesses. So, the Georgia Restaurant Association, I think you'll get to hear from them. They represent the interests of 20,000 eating and drinking establishments in our state that employ roughly 500,000 people. Let's see. Okay, I've already been through that part, so we'll just move on. I'm tired too. Let's see. So we wanted to take a look at what we thought would be some appropriate, minimal but appropriate regulation in this space where there had been none before, taking into account the interests of these companies, consumers, and the restaurant industry upon which they depend, because it's obviously a codependent relationship. Some other states have taken action to try to begin to have some common sense regulations in this space. And then, so in that vein, I want to go ahead and just tell you what is actually in the bill, is all that was by way of background. So on page 2, we got some definitions. The main thing is on line 34 through 36. It would prohibit the utilization of a restaurant's name, likeness, menu items without express written consent. That should actually have written in there. In a draft, somehow that came out, but it should say written. So there has to be a written relationship and agreement between a restaurant and a third-party delivery app, and that's the gist of B1 and 2. The safety requirements that we came up with as a committee that we thought were fair are all on the next page, that the vehicle be clean, that the food should be transported at a temperature necessary to prevent spoilage using appropriate containers, that the food container be closed or sealed by the restaurant, and then not tampered with after that, that there should not be animals in the vehicle other than, we wrote in an exception for service animals, certified service animals, and smoking or vaping in the vehicle while the food is in the vehicle shall be prohibited. Now, again, I hope I'm not being too repetitive here. It bears mention again, I think, of all the food safety regulations that the restaurants follow around temperature, around cleanliness, around no animals, around all this other stuff, and then we don't have anything for the time when the food leaves the restaurant and before it is delivered to the consumer. The remainder of the bill is the enforcement mechanism that was that is being proposed here. We have essentially that the Attorney General, because they have the Consumer Protection Division, or an aggrieved restaurant could seek enforcement of the requirements of the code with some civil fines, or an injunction. And I have also written in this bill because, and this is where I want to stop and hear from others so we can all get out of here. I know, the relationship here, the drivers are not employees, but the apps have a decent amount of, they're the ones that have the company that the individuals are still working for or with. So essentially, my interest in drafting lines 77 through 82 gives the company an opportunity to say, here are the policies and procedures and standards that we have put into place for the establishment of our delivery business, our third-party app delivery business, and we expect all of our drivers to follow these. And if they can show, when they are being accused of violating all of these safety regulations, that they have a robust standards and policies in place, then we could say, well, that in this instance was on the driver. So I'm going to stop there since it's so late.
Okay.
I can answer any questions, or we can just move to hear from the other folks who've been
All right.
waiting around all day.
Senator Parent, are there any questions of Senator Parent? Okay, what?
Two.
Two.
Two or
Senator
four,
Summers?
I like this bill. I like what you've done here. I apologize for not being more up to date on it. Who would enforce this, just to make sure I understand? Like smoking in a car or these type, who would enforce that?
So thank you for the question, Senator Summers. So it would be that the Attorney General Consumer Protection Division or the restaurant themselves can bring an action for a civil penalty or a fine or an injunction.
They'd have to see them. I'm assuming they have to see them
Yep.
or be turned in or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
And we did, several states have taken this sort of thing up.
Really? Smell 'em.
Yeah, several states have taken this sort of thing up, and this is similar to what they have in place in Iowa. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what it would be. And also, we have in the legislation that DPH, since they're the ones that oversee the health and food safety regulations on restaurants, can promulgate some rules and regs to make this all work.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions of the committee? All right, thank you, Senator Parent. I
Thank you,
understand.
Chairman Goodman.
Thank you for this bill. I also believe we have Karen Brewer
Yep.
is here from Georgia Restaurant Association. Ms. Karen, if you will, please just
Keep it very brief.
keep in mind the late hour. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Senators, Karen Bremer, President and CEO of the Georgia Restaurant Association, and I'm a 49-year veteran of the restaurant industry. I have watched an industry grow and have spent my life helping to grow it. In addition to what the senator has said here, there actually are guidelines that have been issued for third-party deliveries from the Council on Food Service Protection, which is a council that is under the Food and Drug Administration. And basically, everything they're suggesting in here is in this bill. Okay. And I will say that when COVID, even before COVID started, and it was obvious that it was coming our way, I started working with the governor's office on how can we keep restaurants open, because with 52 cents of every food dollar in the state of Georgia being spent away from home, we would have crushed the grocery stores even worse than they were crushed. And so I had requested his office to allow us to remain open for carry-out, delivery, and drive-through, which was granted to our industry. We were also named as part of the critical infrastructure in terms of food. However, on March 20th, we laid off over 300,000 workers, and 58% of our, at that time, 19,876 restaurants closed either permanently or temporarily. I'm happy to say we are back. We still don't have enough staff, and I think that the time has. We were very supportive of the delivery companies. We knew we had to get food to consumers, and there's some very good attributes with it. We just feel that they need to have some guardrails in place, just like the restaurants do, to ensure food safety for the people of Georgia. And with that.
All right, good deal. And I'm sorry that this meeting, well, when you have a 5 o'clock meeting anyway, you can't help but it be late. But thank you. We have, if y'all will, this person, Chad Horrell, if you don't mind, you've waited this long, and we certainly are appreciative of your time. But I will ask you, yes, sir, I understand completely, Senator. But if you don't mind, also please remember the hours as you make your remarks.
Yeah, I can be fairly brief myself as well. So thank you very much for having me today to speak before you. Thank you very much to Senator Parent for working with us, both during the study committee this summer, but also as we're working through this bill. I do think that from our perspective, the bill is in a much better place for us, I would say, from where we come from on this bill. And we look forward to continuing to work on it as we're moving forward. Just a couple things I do want to acknowledge are our business. We have 321,000 people in Georgia who dashed last year, who delivered food from over 18,000 restaurants across the state. These are all independent contractors, but I say that more than anything just to acknowledge the three-sided marketplace that we're working with. It's not just the restaurant or the dasher or the customer who's ordering the food on our app. It's all three of them. And these issues are very complex because we have to make sure that the whole ecosystem works for all three, or else the dashers aren't going to show up, the restaurants aren't going to see the value in it, the customers aren't going to place the order. So I just want to acknowledge that on the front end, because these aren't always as easy. These aren't always easy issues as they might seem on its face. But I think with where we sit right now, and Senator Parent and I, we met earlier today actually, I think our biggest thing right now that we're focused on is the liability provision in this. And I think that it's something we can still work through. The biggest thing for us in the current draft is, do we have the ability to remedy the problem in the liability provision? So if we are notified that 10 dashers have vaped in the car, let's say they go in, they go out, they take a hit off a vape or whatever, and they get caught, it's sent in, there's pictures of it, we're found guilty of it, so be it. Don't send us another notice the very next day, and now we're up to 3,000 times 10, right? If it's 1,000, we'll pay the fine. Let us go back to the dasher and figure out what actually happened before we have to get to that second stage. In a lot of cases, they have violated what is our standard IC agreement, and in a lot of cases, they probably are going to be kicked off the app. They're not going to be able to do deliveries anymore because they're not meeting the standards that they are supposed to when they're delivering food. In some cases, maybe it's more of a gray area, and they get a second chance or whatever. But at least allow us the opportunity to acknowledge the problem and fix it before we get to that second or third stage. And I think that's the one thing that, we've talked about that we'd like to see. We'd like to figure out a different way to resolve this. But I think the most important thing here is, at least what I've heard from a lot of folks, including Senator Parent, is the most important aspect here is the non-partner agreement or the contract with the restaurant. All restaurants on the DoorDash app we have a contract with. So we will not be in violation of that. And I think there also needs to be some kind of a differentiation between what is a violation of that provision, which is singular and probably much more major than the Dasher vaping in the car, and what is the Dasher, the independent contractor, also producing a violation. So I think, that's kind of at least where I come from.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Okay, I would just say this as chairman. This legislation came about from a bipartisan study committee that's got 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans that are signed on to this legislation. They put a lot of work into it. So it is my intention, I'm going to give it a little bit for Senator Parent to work with y'all, but it is my intention that when we have another hearing that we're going to vote this bill out. So I encourage y'all to work with her, because any time that there's legislation that's bipartisan and these senators put this work in, it's normally a pretty good deal when you have people from both parties that come together and agree on what the right thing to do is. So I would encourage y'all to work with her. And with that, if no one else has a question, you have a question?
Not a question, just a comment.
Okay, go ahead. Senator Anderson.
Being the time of evening, this would have been an ideal time to try to just
get some DoorDash.
With that, I make a motion to adjourn.
With that, we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, let's go to the House.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you.
Hey, Asher.